Girls, what's one habit that makes a guy instantly unattractive? Okay, so this is one more than one, but bad hygiene, especially not washing his back, not wiping or washing his hands after he whizzes, and not brushing his teeth. Inconsistent communication, blows you up for 3 days and doesn't reply for another 3, or only texting after a certain time of night. Being rude to service staff, not having his own hobbies, passions, or friend group. Alternatively, spending all of his free time gaming, trying to make every conversation intimate, not actively participating in conversations. When he talks about something, he just info dumps or rants and doesn't care to ask your opinion, but either constantly interrupts you or doesn't listen or participate when you're talking about something. Constantly being on something, listening to or watching alpha male podcasts or influencers, chewing tobacco, smoking inside, needing to get hammered every time you spend time together, not being able to accept that he's wrong about something, especially when it's because he's so sure he's smarter than you or everyone. So anything you tell him that he disagrees with has to be backed up by like 4 peer-reviewed sources. Only telling jokes that are offensive, like his only sense of humor is putting someone down for something. If he spends all his free time gaming, maybe he's just leveling up his avoiding real life skill tree. Story 2. This is true for both genders, but unfortunately, considered more acceptable for men if he's not nice to others or not his family, friends, or superiors. You used to be easily able to spot those by seeing how they treat the service staff on the first date. However, some people learn that women look for that specifically. Now you need to notice carefully how he talks about other people. If all or most other women are annoying to him except you and his mom, red flag. If people need to earn the right to be respected by him, red flag. Basic decency is the bare minimum. You can perhaps lose that, right? But no one needs to prove he deserves it if they didn't do anything terribly wrong. If he doesn't see why you should perform basic acts of kindness, like telling a stranger they dropped their wallet because it's not his problem, red flag. Joy of seeing others suffer, gigantic, red flag. Basically, if he doesn't see others as deserving, he can't ever truly love. No matter how nice and considerate he is to you and there's no conflict and he deems you worthy, he can't ever truly love. He can own, but that's not love. Story 3. I can't stand it when someone starts baby calling, or other sweet names or girly, etc., when we don't even know each other yet. If I don't know the correct spelling for the words in English, because that's not my first language, but I hope you all get the point, that's just something that makes me want to cringe, run, roll my eyes, and move in the middle of a forest in an abandoned house alone with my cats forever. And every single one who I've met and started to speak with, they all have started to speak like this in the first 3 days or so. If I've told you that I don't feel comfortable about this, it's even, number 1, it's just a cute nickname. Number 2, don't be so negative. Number 3, what should I call you then? Idiot? So yes, I have decided that being a crazy cat mama who crochets is all I need. Also yelling at games and breaking keyboards or controllers and slamming on their desk in anger at a game. My ex broke many keyboards, mice, and controllers. He even broke a weld on his desk that was right where he'd constantly slam on when he was mad. It's extremely unattractive because it shows poor anger management. If something is genuinely that frustrating, you should have turned off the game and done something else long before it came to breaking your own stuff. He never learned any lesson because he'd order new stuff on Amazon to be delivered the same day and keep gaming. Story 4. Getting mad at me for being better at something than they are. I'm not remotely competitive, and I fully understand that not everyone is going to have the same skill set. Sometimes that means I'm better at something than a guy is. Sometimes they're better at something than me. If I'm not actively shaming the guy or making a big deal about it, which I never do, unless they've been acting like a total schmuck, it is incredibly unattractive and infuriating to turn my win into a referendum on their manhood. Get off of that stuff and get some therapy, if your ego is that fragile. Women are allowed to have skills and talents. Telling jokes that aren't jokes or trying to pass off rude remarks as jokes, can't operate a broom, leaves trash lying around, littering, rude to people in general, can't do simple stuff like laundry, etc. Basically, my expectations are that I don't have to take care of them like a baby, I don't have to deal with rude behavior 24/7. Apparently, though, these expectations are too high and I'm destined to be alone forever. Story 5. One that I haven't seen listed. Trying to be impressive is a way to one-up or say you're better than another person because of said person's accomplishments, skills, education, and or work history. Trying to be impressive to make a good first impression and or when being introduced to someone significant is one thing, if done modestly, or trying to get to know another person. Trying to be impressive to say that you're better than someone, especially when it is a poor comparison, says enough about one's character, especially when the response after failing to one-up these things is met with doubling down, insisting that X person isn't really skilled or accomplished, trying to poke holes to say that X person must be lying or exaggerating, or saying that you're more knowledgeable in that area than X person, or just trying to put down the accomplishment in general by being negative over it. Regardless of which path is taken, it's exhausting to deal with. You don't have to be great at everything or better than another person who most likely worked hard to get to that point. If you feel like X person is more accomplished than you, and it makes you feel some kind of way, don't be rude over it. Go to therapy instead. Story 6. Someone who is all ego. That isn't the same as someone believing in themselves or even someone who thinks they're personally fantastic. It's someone who has to insert themselves into every single little thing. If you're ill, they're more unwell or had whatever you have, but worse. If you're feeling low, they're much more depressed or have more to feel depressed at than you. If you're struggling to make ends meet, they struggle every single day. Whatever the issue, they can dwarf your experience. Similarly, they can't see your position on things. Their way is the highway, and though you're fine to disagree with them, they refuse to hear you out on anything because they know you're wrong because you disagree with them. Or they are very focused on their needs above yours. Will they help you with a heavy bag? No way. Carry your own stuff, not my bags. If you feel low, oh well, that's on you. They are not feeling tired, and that's where the conversation ends. All those are examples of someone with an ego that will always dwarf yours and anyone else's, to be honest. It's themselves first, another second. That sort of mentality is so dull. Someone who doesn't want to learn is really boring. Someone who has to be the best or most hard up, poor, rich, whatever. You'll find plenty who are always seeking to be the most everything, from wealthiest or strongest or whatever. You'll separately find those who have had to be the worst or most broke or saddest or hardest working or most unlucky. And either of those are as bad as each other because they're both about ego. Person first and above anything or anyone else. Going out for a drink with any of these types of people is likely to find you as their partner feeling isolated, alone and tired before you're past the first hour. You walk away with nothing but the sense of being drained, disempowered, or just plain bored. Story 7. There are several habits that can make a guy instantly unattractive. These include nail biting or keeping dirty nails, smoking or chewing tobacco, gambling, irresponsible drunkenness, speed eating, excessive phone checking, ego fanning or self-flaunting, showing off or wearing pants sagging below the belt line, physically or verbally cruel attitudes, an I don't need you, don't need anyone attitude, easily displaying signs of rage, talking about or engaging in use, being a frequent gamer or having a gamer's cave, wearing or re-wearing dirty smelly socks, getting into bed with shoes still on or in sweaty clothes, leaving dirty dishes lying around, leaving pre-worn or used garments or other clothes on the floor, talking awful stuff about other people, lacking awareness of surroundings for safety and helpfulness, excessive, repetitive complimenting that seems ingenuine, frequently talking about ex-partners, keeping a dirty interior of a car, littering, hawking a loogie across the pathway, sticking gum under tables, couch surfing or Tinder surfing, letting his mother do his laundry or not knowing how to do his own, putting back empty food boxes or jars into the fridge or cabinets, refusing to bring essentials like a jacket or a payment method and then asking to borrow yours, collecting creepy clown dolls, keeping a reptilian or insect zoo in the home, and displaying a lack of basic hygiene and responsibility. In fair balance, habits such as hand-washing a dish immediately after use, treating diner servers kindly, keeping a well-groomed beard, smelling fresh and clean without using perfumes, softly gazing intently during conversation, being proud to introduce you as a date, being gently passionate about laundry and organization, keeping shoes clean, calling to check in on friends or parents regularly, displaying acts of thoughtfulness, pitching in to clean up, holding doors open, offering to shovel snow for an elderly neighbor, feeding stray cats, being benevolent, sharing visions of family life, always making his side of the bed, driving safely and treating others with patience or kindness, respect, gentleness, and care are all instant turn-ons. Story 8. They spend 50% or more of their conversation energy negating or saying why something isn't that good, but something else could be better, why so-and-so is bad at such and such. I don't mean being a downer or even negative energy, although this could be that too. I'm talking about places, people, and institutions that have taken years of talent and training to make, and he wants to come along and just say, meh. I think this is something lazy or boring people do, because tearing something down is easy. You don't need any creative power to disagree or hate. You just need to complain or say you've seen something better. The opposite and much more attractive version of this is when guys talk to me about the talent and genius that was put into some effort or other. The beautiful, the miraculous, and why these things are meaningful and important. Show me that you're learning from the good in the world, not just scoffing at the bad. My boyfriend info dumps about random niche things he learns that are helpful and inspiring. It makes his brain, and therefore him, very sexy to me. It sounds like he's a professional turning every conversation into a critique session. Story 9. When you tell him something about yourself and he tells you you're wrong, it is something as simple as, "Girl, I'm craving some chips." Guy, "No, you're not. You just ate." "Yes, you just ate, but she also wants some chips." How can you tell her what she's experiencing? Her own craving is wrong. That's a real conversation I heard on the bus. The girl stayed quiet after that. I once had a first date where I ordered a seafood dish and the guy immediately turned to the waiter and said, "She doesn't want that." Then turns to me and tells me the pork chop is fantastic here and I should try that instead. I turned to the waiter and said, "No thanks. I'll keep my original choice." That date was awkward AF. Story 10. Being scared of anything considered not manly. Trying so hard to be what their friends and peers want. Basically a real-life NPC, man. Most people like this don't have passions or are scared to show their passions because they're worried of what people think, then give up or try to forget about them. I've met so many men with incredible talents or passions, but never pursued them because of the fear of sticking out or getting called not straight. Real sad, honestly. And you can see it from the first or second date. Also, coughing without covering, sneezing without covering, picking your nose, gluttons. No matter what, you're always right and you know about everything. Putting someone down just to appeal to your buddies. Engaging harmfully with those who can't defend themselves. Mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, whatever. Story 11. Lying for absolutely no reason. Obviously, people lie when they do stuff that's wrong or is going to wuss off or hurt the other person. It's so ugly and annoying when someone lies constantly and there's not even a reason for it. I also hate when men act helpless. My husband can't do anything. I don't know if he's just lazy or his mother literally taught him nothing. He doesn't do laundry, dishes, cleaning of any sort. Leaves his dirty clothes everywhere for me to pick up. Won't put his dishes away or absolutely anything away. The dog will whiz on the couch and he'll just let it dry up. He'll break something and just leave it for me to clean up. He goes on his phone and computer and watches TV and that's about it. It's like having a sixth child, but the other 5 are younger and have already learned all the basics and proceed with life. The other day, I put an important stack of papers in a mesh bag and set it next to our bed. He threw garbage and dirty dishes in it. Story 12. Breathing down their girlfriend's necks. A customer wanted to settle her bill and split it with her friend who didn't pay much and the other still had a huge sum to pay, but her card kept declining. After an hour and 20 minutes, they were ready to try again. I was told by the bouncer they weren't allowed to leave. They declined again. She then gets frustrated and says she has more than enough, so I suggested maybe she has a limit on what she could swipe and she doesn't even know that was a thing. I told her to set it up in the banking app, but she couldn't find where to set it and neither did I because I don't use the same bank, so she suggested to pay in small amounts. While we were settling the bill, her boyfriend is holding her. Even made out while I was trying to help her find the limit settings, complaining and moaning why she has to make her mom pay. The people who kept ordering in the tab should pay. So in order to not cause confusion, I showed him the bill. The girl who split with him was the only one who ordered for me, and it was 3 bottles of vodka and 45 Red Bulls. So it's clear no one added to the bill. And he kept complaining, but why does her mother have to pay? Okay, then why don't you pay? He then complains again, it's people who kept adding to the bill. Again, no one did but her friend. They both agreed they were going to pay and it's none of my concern where the money comes from. Eventually, we got down to the second last tab and he pushed his hand over mine while I was pressing in the total. I snapped at him and asked him if he could not. And he kept whining and suggested they pester everyone in the group the next day, and I reassured him again, only one person ordered, and it was the vodka and Red Bulls he's also drank from. It was from the group. But he persisted, so I gave them extra copies of all the slips so they can look over it tomorrow. Story 13. Not knowing how to cook or clean. Staying on top of his tasks, maintaining friendships, and taking care of himself. I can do all these things. I would never date a man who couldn't. Why do I need to date someone incompetent, or less competent than me? It's worked out well for me because as soon as a man drops that he's a slob, or he eats mostly takeout, I don't pursue anything further and just shut it down. Lol. It means I tend to only date men who are actually men, as in adults. Also being too much, and too focused on us that it becomes creepy. Like if I go on a date with you, don't go all crazy and plan a future, life, and everything together when we aren't official yet. Or we just met once. Nor when we just played a game together and you already claimed me as your girlfriend when it was just a friendly game. No joke, happened before. The reason was we're talking and played a game, so that made me his girlfriend, despite me living together with my boyfriend and was doing FLG, gaming term. It is overall creepy and turns me and so many others hella off. I can imagine other ways around it will too. Nothing more uncomfortable and creepy. Story 14. A guy who judges or forms conclusions or opinions soon based on appearance, status, gossip, etc. There was a debate program at my college. The arguments presented by a person were so bad and stupid, everyone was talking about how bad he was. The debate was over and it was break time. A guy whom I knew for about 6 months was standing in the corridor. I just said hi. He responded with, "I think you would have liked his arguments a lot." I was kind of shocked because he appeared serious while saying this. Actually, the point was I was always called a boring, uncool kid in school. I felt really bad about all this because I really thought this guy was kind and not judgmental. Also, some men act like they can only respect women as equals or equally smart if they aren't afraid or intimidated by their stupid chest-puffing alpha nonsense. It just makes it more obvious when they're disrespecting everyone else, especially women who aren't confrontational or who are more introverted or quiet, but perhaps more emotionally or socially skilled. I had one guy in work training who was very stereotypically machismo. And being Latina myself, I was like, okay, whatever. I once corrected him when he answered a question in our training class wrong. He tried to argue, and I proved I was right and the instructor confirmed. It was like, after that, he treated me with more respect than basically all the other women in the class because I'd proved myself by showing he was wrong. It doesn't make me feel good. It just makes it more obvious when those dudes still speak over the other women or don't treat them as intellectual equals, somehow just because they aren't loud. And I am tired of men who meet a woman and then instantly decide on trying to get her to fit whatever kink role they most desire, rather than finding out anything about her. Stop coding women based on whether or not they perform stereotypical femininity. That's weird. It's so unattractive to just assume that a woman who doesn't immediately assert her opinions verbally must be a sub. And a woman who does feel comfortable confronting alpha BS must be a good dominatrix in the making. Some kind of bizarre extension of a Madonna complex, to be honest. Story 15. So many women and I need to say girls actually look at wrong things as being attractive. It is not on the outside. It's the inside. And many things can make a gentleman a piece of you-know-what really quickly. Could be he's just too sorry to do anything. Lazy. Which is a disease to many nowadays. Not respecting the other's boundaries, not respecting himself enough by taking care of her and being the man he should be. I can't look at someone and think they're unattractive because they smoke or because they drink or anything like that, because many habits can be changed. What it really, truly depends on how much the gentleman, may be a boy at the time, wants to change for you. If you're asking as a male, I feel you've been through many breakups, and if I'm wrong, my apologies, but if you're asking, then you need to pay more attention to the communication that is open to you from the ladies you may have been with. If not, maybe sit down with a best friend and ask what would be your pros and what would be your cons. Story 16. When they have a habit of constantly assuming that you're trying to be mean to them. I've certainly done my fair share of actions or words that either I didn't realize would hurt the other person, or I thought would be helpful only to realize that they're not. So there's nothing more unattractive to me when a guy, or really just anyone, immediately assumes that I'm trying to be mean to them, instead of bothering to ask, hey, why did you do that? It's even worse when that kind of behavior continues the longer you've known someone. Assuming I'm being mean when you've only known me a couple of weeks. Still kind of terrible, but it is reasonable. But if you're pulling this kind of behavior when I've known you for months or even years, and there's been a consistent pattern of the other person being nice to you, well, at that point, it just makes you look like you're trying to sabotage the relationship. Story 17. There's this guy I know, childhood friend, who's a little bit prejudiced and believes in weird things like soy turns men into women, and the more guys a woman has been with, the harder it is for her to find love, among other weird and stupid things that's borderline conspiracy theory territory. Whenever he opens his mouth, I just want to grab his shoulders, shake them and scream, "Why?" into his face because he's incredibly good looking and has a really nice body, and I'd definitely be with him if I had the opportunity, but he's so stupid, and all his opinions make it even worse. I wish I could say that this makes him instantly unattractive, but it doesn't. He's still sexy, as long as he keeps his goddamn mouth shut. However, an average-looking person with these opinions would be an instant no from me. If you're enjoying the video, don't forget to hit that subscribe and like button for more videos like this. Story 18. Asking questions like this one, or what are some of the biggest turn-ons, are pointless because most women actually have no idea. You're always going to get responses like, I like nice guys who are super genuine, enjoy long walks on the beach, know how to control their anger, are polite to everyone, and are super sensitive and in touch with their emotions. And I dislike guys who are arrogant, rude to people, and have short tempers. But the one they always end up choosing is the schmuck, almost every time. Why? Because most of them actually like confidence, spontaneity, the thrill of danger in the project. I can change him. And schmucks have all those qualities while the nice guys they say they want are actually boring. So, there you go. What they say they want and what they actually go for are often two very different things. Story 19. To me, it's immediately sending unsolicited pics upon first messaging. It happens a lot and is such a turnoff. Like, I didn't ask for or want that, and it comes off as barbaric and gross and selfish. My advice to men would be to get to know us first, at least. Lower any inclination for immediate gross self-indulgence and focus more on finding a mutual human connection. And maybe turn the objectification down a few notches. Doing that instantly bumps you up in attractiveness compared to the average, in my book at least. Also, I'm not a subscriber to exclusivity in relationships, and that goes both ways. Like, I don't own my partner, and I'm not entitled to dictate their intimate choices or relationships. Like, why would I get upset for my SO to find joy with another person? It's not my business how and who they choose to spend their time with. And I'd rather be happy they're happy than be jealous and controlling, and prefer guys who think similarly. That, like, exclusivity of a monogamous relationship gives controlling, selfish-like ownership entitlement vibes, and I find it a turnoff, but I'm probably in the minority here. Turning down the objectification and focusing on genuine connection is a surefire way to be more attractive. Story 20. My cousin was dating this guy, and she noticed that he was a little more on the sloppy side, but kinda ignored, because this was her first time actually dating someone in her age range. Usually dates much older guys. I wanted to make it work. She would always vent to me about his bad habits, which included the apartment being always messy, and the way he dressed. Holes in all of his pants, shirts, and wouldn't change his sheets for months on end. She once told me he hadn't changed his sheets since he moved into his place. He was a much bigger guy on the weight side. Isn't a problem because we love a big king. But he would always make fun of other bigger people, and while sitting there talking to someone, he would just let this whole entire stomach hang out, and not care while looking you straight in the eyes and talking to you. I hadn't talked to her for like 2 weeks because we were both really busy, but then I ended up going to her place to hang out, and she was just catching me up on her life. And she just casually goes, "Oh, me and Nick broke up," with a smile on her face. She was smiling because she was no longer stressed out, and she would go to his place and help him clean, buy him new sheets and comforters and new clothes. She told me her final straw was when she asked him before coming to stay the night with him if he could wash his bed sheets and pillowcases. She's big on skincare, and one of the ways she keeps her skin clear is by washing all of her bedding almost every day from bacteria buildup. She went over thinking he had done it, and she confronted him about it and told me he was so nonchalant while telling her she's crazy if she thinks she would ever meet a guy that would do all that for her. Basically saying she needs to lower her standards because no one in their right mind would go out of their way to do that simple task. Like, what the hell? She was like, "Haven't you noticed my skin got clearer after breaking up with him?" Story 21. Complaining about lack of money, yet buying game merchandise and a pen twice a week, and ordering out. This is if he's not trying to slow down on this. Basically complaining about something that's his fault and never working to fix. I'm trying. It takes a while to learn this stuff. This is only annoying if I've been begging you to give me any compliment or sweet thing and nothing for months or affection. When I bring up an issue, a woman, or I faced immediately saying, guys go through that too, and instantly defending the guy. Defending a cheater is a story I'm telling him. Letting his friends talk down to me and disrespect me. Drive recklessly. Like rude memes and iFunny and save them. Weaponized ignorance that, yes, that girl basically trying to fuse to you and touching you and flirting with you. It's just plain rude and incompetent if it gets to a point. When I explain I would like something to be done, like if I tell you I'm slightly insecure and aware it's not realistic, but I would like reassurance, I get, "That's stupid. Just stop thinking about that." With no reassurance. These all can all mostly apply to women, these are just turn-offs for me, and there are obvious exceptions. Story 22. Instantaneous in that it is not something you need to slowly find out. Bad table manners. Easily spotted after a decent conversation, acting paternal in an I know better way. Equally unattractive as any sort of prejudice, but it is a soft sell of placating and minimizing your judgment. It is often shown before other more serious stuff. It is the quiet, unearned arrogance. Lots more stuff is instant as soon as he slips up and shows what he was hiding, or if a situation comes up and a new side comes to light. For example, he might not be hiding that his mom always comes first and she's horrible, but you just never encountered the situation before. Also, when they can't properly communicate when something upsets them, they bottle it up with everything else that upsets them over a period of time until it all comes flooding out. It's impossible to keep track of the conversation no matter how much you want to address everything they're saying and get to a good place for you both. One of my exes did this often, and he would blow up and become verbally cruel, which stopped any chance of constructive conversation. Continued to deplete trust in the relationship little by little until there wasn't much left. Story 23. Gosh, where do I start? When I clearly state boundaries and they try to gloss over them with the intent of trying to push them later. This is often done in conjunction with trying to humble a woman who was never on a high horse, and at the very most, she was probably just direct. When you try to end the talking stage because it's clear you guys have nothing in common, they try and reason with you. Okay, when you stick to your guns after ending things and they start with the whole sad boy insecure rhetoric thing. Oh, I knew you didn't really like me. Pretty girls never stick around to get to know me. Yada yada yada. Honorary mention to the guys that go into a talking stage, knowing a girl only dates for serious relationships. Now she's expressing herself and personality so you can actually get to know her. His only talking points are how fine she is, how good she looks, etc. All this while giving one-word or sentence answers to her questions, asking about himself. Bonus points if he makes hookup calls, jokes. Of course, not all men, but enough. Enough men. Story 24. Referring to women as girls. Back in my dating days, it was an instant no when I'd go to their place and it was a mess or super sparse. Like one pillow, one many towels, 3 plates, all in the sink. Nasty old bedding that hasn't been washed and smells sour. How in the hell does someone think it's okay to bring a date home to that? Gee, gotta go, I just remembered my cat needs her medicine. Or some excuse. I've even faked diarrhea to dip out. I don't mind if the person is lower income. I've been there myself. But it's not that difficult to put some effort into a place. Go to the thrift store and get a couple of things. The food bank can supply you with some cleaners and stuff. I used to take clients who were new off the streets to places with tiny move-in vouchers to get little things to brighten the place up. They'd be in the middle of chaos with their neat little apartment and clean stuff. So it's not about being poor. And these guys would have real jobs and a car and a decent apartment. They dress normal, so I'd have no idea. Maybe go on a few dates and they invite me over for a movie or something. And it's a laptop and a milk crate and we're sitting in a lumpy futon. I'm not, and never been some gold digger. I always made my own way. Had my own apartment. I was lower income, but was in school forever and made my way up. It's not that they had no money, it's that they had no living skills. I think they wanted some woman to take care of them. Yuck. Total turnoff. Story 25. Hygiene. A few years ago, I was casually seeing this guy. His apartment was very messy. I don't mind an unorganized and messy apartment happening once in a while, but if it's dirty, there's a problem. I'd showered once, and afterwards he threw a towel over my head and shoulders. Guess what? Towel smelled awful, and I thought I was tripping. I sniffed it closer to my nose to double-check. He walked out the bathroom before me, and I took it as an opportunity to switch towels. So I quickly started sniffing all the towels hanging behind the door rack quickly, like a canine sniffing for evidence, and oh my gosh. They all smelled exactly the same, except for the small hand towel. I felt so disgusted and disgusting because the towel he handed me touched me. I went home and reshowered. Never showered with him again and eventually slowly cut him off. Story 26. I'm probably going to get hate for this, but cowardice. 100% huge ick for me. And I've been insulted by other people in the past. My ex stood by and did nothing. He hated confrontation and avoided it at all costs because he was a really shy or nervous person. But one time I even saw him laughing and joking around with my coworkers who had just made me cry an hour earlier. They were horrible to me, but he never stood up for me once. Even if he just tried to remain professional and kept conversation to a bare minimum, I could live with that. But laughing and joking around with him after they pestered me? No. Just no. I am a very shy or anxious person too. I get it. I don't like confrontation either. But when my loved ones have been insulted in the past, all my shyness and anxiety goes out the window and I either fight them or scream at them, because that's just my reaction. Someone you love gets hurt, it makes you angry. You want to fight. And that's the reaction I wanted from him. Because when someone defends you and fights for you, there's passion and love there. That's one of the most attractive things about a guy for me. Also, the nice guy energy. Used to date one once. Can tell you right now, every single one of his friends told him he was batting above his league. Not once did he lose the nice guy shtick. It was always that girls would pick his friends over him, as he's sitting there with his long-term partner. Girls only go for attractive guys. Girls only care about your looks or money. Neither of which he had. Girls go for schmucks, never the nice guy. I should have seen the signs earlier, but we aren't together anymore. Also, you're not nice if you're trying to gain something from the other person, and your generosity and kindness is transactional. Gross. Also, feel free to judge me dating someone like that for 5 years. I'm disappointed in me too. Story 27. When I was trying out online dating, big mistake, I would immediately reject profiles of men that showed them working out, drinking, smoking, posing with weapons, at sports events, with their car or fishing or hunting. It's fine if a guy does some of these things in moderation, but if he features them in his profile, that either means that he lacks the introspection and individuality to build a personality other than standard issue male, or that he thinks that women are attracted to men that like those things, so he's trying to present a false face just to get some. Either one is equally bad. Unfortunately, here in Texas, that's 90% of dating profiles. Some are much, much worse. I've been legitimately frightened by things I've read on profiles. Story 28. I'm very picky about who I find attractive, so prepare yourself for a list of instant turnoffs. Being a schmuck, engaging in cruel behavior, stalking or pestering is a complete deal breaker. Lying and cheating are also non-negotiable. Not respecting boundaries is a major issue, and is making fun of others. Smelling cigarettes is a turnoff. I was with a guy who smoked, but if you reek of cigarettes all the time, it's a no-go. Being prejudiced is unacceptable. I turned down a good-looking guy with great taste in music for this reason. Believing that women should have kids as their sole life purpose is outdated and unattractive. Similarly, believing in strict gender rules for work, like certain tasks being only for men or women, is a turnoff. I mean, even kids can do dishes and mow the lawn. Being overly religious or part of a cult is a red flag. My first ex was in a cult. Getting your mom to communicate for you after an argument is immature and unattractive. Not showering regularly is a basic hygiene issue that's hard to overlook. Neglecting mental health or sacrificing it for a good living is concerning. My second ex did this, working in creature extermination, and it was depressing for both of us. Lack of empathy is a significant issue. Being overly political to the point of constantly talking about it and putting others down is off-putting. Trying to convert people to your way of thinking is also unattractive. Lastly, wearing cartoon character shirts might seem like a small thing, but it's just not my style. Story 29. This might be a regional thing, but in the city I live, there is an accent that locals take on, purely for aesthetic reasons. Nobody actually talks like that. I cringe every time I hear it. And what they think is the sound of me laughing because they're funny is actually the sound of the part of my brain associated with attraction closing up shop. It's essentially bad patois with random flecks of mispronounced Arabic. People who lean too hard into their voice sound like what leprechauns would if they were parodying Jamaicans. I blame a famous rapper, who I will not name, for causing an even bigger boom of this accent to take off. Too many times I've been out socializing, have an attractive man walk up to me, and I'm met with this ridiculous forced tone and accent that I promise you is not natural. It is simply attached to a local subculture of wannabe gangsters. You know they don't talk like that because number one, these voices always pop up once they become teenagers, and two, the second one of their relatives comes around, the accent and matching mannerisms disappear. Story 30. Ignoring social cues. I think there is a difference between not being great at social cues and just outright ignoring them because you want to finish your point. I suppose that also goes into believing everyone always wants to hear what you have to say. Example, my college roommate and I went to the dining hall and ran into a group of guys we kinda know. After sitting and talking, I realized the subject has changed, but this one guy just won't stop talking about how much he hated the Barbie movie. We try to change the subject. When that doesn't work, we start the, oh well, it's getting pretty late, or I have homework, dance. He still goes on, noticing that we were over it, but ignoring it, because what he's saying must be the most important film review that's ever graced the planet Earth, and possibly the universe surrounding it. Story 31. Alpha male posturing. If you have a desperate need to tell everyone just how masculine and bossy you are, then I immediately know that you're dealing with some insecurities. Truly confident men don't need to tell you how great they are. They know it. You can pick up on it when you talk to them. Acting tough doesn't make you tough. The same can be said for having money and needing to flaunt it. Flashing cash doesn't make you more attractive. You can be a rich muck and all people will value you for the benefits you can offer them. That's not meaningful as a relationship. Relatedly, as has been noted by others, being rude to people working in the service industry. When a guy is being a schmuck to the wait staff, he's not showing the world how in charge he is. He's just making a schmuck of himself in public, while also making other people's jobs harder. There's nothing attractive about it. Story 32. I like men who always choose to be the bigger person. Physically, emotionally, spiritually, etc. I don't like when men make jokes about hating women or wanting to put women down. Jokes about hating their spouse. Lack of fidelity or consideration for their wife's feelings. Sharing terrible opinions or behavior. Lack of intelligence. This might be personal preference. Personal hygiene. Make an effort to be a gentleman and never scare women on purpose. I like when men try their best and when they're lifting people up around them if they can. Joe Rogan, Chris Williamson, Lex Friedman, Jordan Peterson, Dave Smith, Michael Malice are fine, but Andrew Tate is not. He scares the kind of women I think most men would want to be with. This is just an opinion from a random 20-something girl, so probably take it with a grain of salt. I don't know. Story 33. Pretty much everything. As a man with like one male friend who still gets on my nerves from time to time, I just hate all the machismo stuff that's associated with masculinity. And like objectively, I know it's getting better than it has been, but all the guys I meet are just tool bags. I was raised by a toxic boomer and most of my bosses, coworkers, classmates have been the same energy. My girlfriend has legit said I hate men more than most women she knows, and it's kind of hard on the fact that I need to give people a chance. She's not wrong, but Jesus, is it hard when everyone you've ever met who's a man just projects that gross toxic masculine energy? Loki had the realization that I like anime so much because of all the wholesome male relationships. Like it genuinely makes me cry sometimes. Thanks for coming to my trauma TED Talk. Story 34. Constantly putting themselves down. Incels come to mind a lot, and while they harbor some truly nasty views towards women, and often most races, I can't help but feel a shred of empathy towards them sometimes. Still, anytime I try to encourage them with kind words about their future, they rebuff with, "It's hopeless. Thanks, but you're just being nice," etc., etc. Makes me think of Elliot Rodgers' manifesto, more like Diary of a Whiny Kid, and how he came off in that. Dude was born into a wealthy family, had every privilege available, was fairly intelligent and not even bad looking, but he chose to hold on to the most horrid outlooks on life and women and everyone around him and feel entitled to so much. There's few things less attractive than that, even bad hygiene. Story 35. Trying to impress you. Number one, if you're going to act like that in the beginning to pull someone in and you stop doing that, you have no right to be upset when they're no longer interested. Number two, with things like cars, money, houses, etc., I'm not impressed. All that shows me is you're an irresponsible spender. Number three, if you're in a relationship, make it clear that you are, and they say, "I could be better." No, hell no. You're more likely to be a homewrecker if you just don't try to mess with a relationship like that. If they would like you so much more, they'll find that out with just being friends with you. Talking too much about how attractive you find someone. It's one thing with compliments like pretty, beautiful, etc., but even in a relationship, it's a bit of a weird vibe if all you're hearing is specific things about your body. It's kind of creepy when it's in general rather than an intimate moment. Like, I get it. My current significant other is the sexiest person alive, but constantly talking about his body would be kind of weird of me. There's a lot more, but these are basics no matter what the gender is. Story 36. Being stupid. Not the kind of masculine need to do reckless stuff. Being willfully ignorant about some stuff and yet talking about it as they were an intellectual authority. Being unkind to anyone who they might perceive as weak or beneath them. Unattractive women, children, elderly, waiters, cleaning staff. Pretending to be a tough guy but actually being stuck as their 12-year-old selves and wanted to play gangsta. Tackiness. Bad hygiene. Ridiculing anyone who has a tight, healthy relationship with their parents, and yet he doesn't stop talking about seeking a family-oriented woman. Not being or acting religious in any way, and yet he doesn't stop quoting the Bible, but always cherry-picking the verses that talk about the wife's submission to her husband, and forgetting the ones which talk about the husband's duties, like honoring and respecting his wife. Well, if you like these stories, here's more. YouTube thinks you're going to love this. Catch you in that video.